The best way to get better at programming is to practice. And in this example, we're going to test proposed usernames by a person and determine if it's valid or an invalid name. As always, this file can be downloaded from the link provided in the description below. You can pause this video and then check your answer, or if you get stuck, look for some help. All right, in this example, let's take a look at how we're going to check for usernames. Now we have some rules as to what a username can be. So for example, a username has to contain letters, it may contain numbers, and that is it. We have some sample data that you can take a look at and what the inputs and outputs would be. So let's get started real quick on how we're going to program this. Now, one easy way is to make this a function, or we could just do it procedurally, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to create a variable called username, and it's going to get input from the user. And now we're going to have a couple of basic tests. Now, this is all going to be about testing our strings, and Python has a lot of good string testing tools built into it. So the first thing I want to do is say if username dot is al num. So what is al num does is it checks to see, is my string made up of only alphabetic or numeric characters. That's it. If it is, it returns true. If not, it returns false. So since we know we can be made up of letters and numbers, we're going to automatically come in here and say else print invalid, just as we see in the sample. Of course, we don't have our true block yet, and that's because we need to do another test. Because is al num will be good if it's all letters, all numbers, or a combination. And if you remember correctly, we cannot have a username that is just numbers. So I'm going to put in here a nested if statement, say if username dot is digit. And is digit is going to return true if it is all numeric numbers. So we'll print invalid if it's all numbers. Now, if it's not all numbers, but was inside the true block for my is al num, then that means it has to be valid. Because that means that it could be all letters, which is acceptable, or letters and numbers, which is also acceptable. So we're going to print valid. Let's test this real quick. What username would I like? I'm going to say John Smith. It's invalid, okay, which is exactly what we expected. We saw this up here in our sample. J Smith 23, valid. J Smith, this is just letters, valid. Just numbers, invalid, just as we would expect. And finally, and that is also invalid, just as we expect, because underscores, just like spaces, are not acceptable. So this is a real simple example of how we can use some built-in string testing to check to see, is a username valid? We can use this for a lot of different things because we're not limited to just is digit and is al num. We can look for, is something only uppercase or lowercase? We can check to see, is it just alphabetic characters instead of alpha and numeric? We have lots of different things that we can do. So this is just a couple of quick examples that we can see. If you like this and you're using this to get better at programming in Python, please consider subscribing to see other examples of how you can learn how to program better.